Hi there guys, Tom Quayle here, hope everyone's doing very well indeed. Today I am checking out the Xvive U4 wireless in-ear monitoring system. So let's check it out. So as with all wireless units on the market, the Xvive U4 consists of two components. You have the transmitter and the receiver. Now the first thing that struck me about the U4 is how small, compact and lightweight both of these units are. The transmitter, if you think about standard wireless systems, they tend to be half rack or full rack units. This is basically an XLR plug connected to a transmitter. It's really, really impressive, and it's really, really lightweight and very affordable indeed. So that's a great thing. Now, if I show you on this camera here, you can see there the form factor, very, very small indeed. We've got very simple controls. We have a power switch on there. Then we can switch between auxiliary and line level signals and then select our various different bands. And then on the actual receiver here, very similar setup on the top here. We have our power control. There's the headphone out for your favorite in-ear monitors or headphones. Then we have a volume control over here. Tons of drive available on here as well in terms of the headphone amplifier. So this thing can get super loud. Then we've got 6 different bands again. And then on the back, a really sturdy clip. This is really, really well built and is going to stay on anything, say a belt buckle or pocket that you put it on. And these are definitely, in terms of a gig situation or in the studio, you could drop these on a hard floor and they would absolutely 100% survive. So they're very impressive in terms of form factor for a start. So let's check out some specs. So considering the price of these units, you get a lot of spec for your money. Xvive are quoting 90 feet or 30 meters in terms of the range. They're also quoting 48 kilohertz 24-bit sound quality with a full range response. So that's all the way down from 20 hertz all the way up to 20 kilohertz. Now that's really important because it means that you're not going to get dropouts on large stages, and also you're going to get the best sound quality possible. If you've got a really nice set of molded in-ear monitors or a great pair of headphones in the studio, you know that you're utilizing that full sound quality, which is both inspiring from a playing perspective and very useful in terms of recording and in live sound to get the best possible mix for you to play the best that you possibly can. Xvive also quote a 5-hour battery life for both of the units, and they do come with a dual USB charger, micro USB in this case, so you can charge them both from a single USB socket or charger at the same time. Now, some of you might be worried about the fact that they're inbuilt batteries as opposed to discrete external ones, and I can share your worry in that regard, in that on a gig or in a recording session you can't just change the batteries. However, there is convenience in terms of the fact that it makes these very, very small and portable. And that long battery life does mean that if you charge them before a gig or before a recording session, you should be absolutely fine. And these should last years and years. You shouldn't find that the battery life diminishes too much. They're high quality batteries in here, I'm assured. Of course, the other super important stat is the latency, because this is a wireless unit and there's analog to digital conversion going on and then back the other way. Latency is a big issue. Now, Xvive quote less than 5 milliseconds of latency, and we're actually going to do a test to test that out in a moment to check whether that's accurate. But 5 milliseconds of latency or less is pretty much imperceivable by most people. It's about the same as standing a reasonable distance from a guitar cab and playing on a decent sized stage, so you shouldn't really be able to notice that. Now, the units use the 2.4 gigahertz wireless band, and historically people can get a little bit worried about that in terms of it being a crowded bandwidth. Now, in my experience using these in my studio, of course with the pandemic on, I haven't been able to use them live at all, but in the studio I've had no issues. And in the studio I've got 4 2.4 gigahertz wireless plugs in here. I also have an Alexa unit that's connected to my 2.4 gigahertz band, and also some light bulbs in this room for my lighting, which are controlled via Alexa as well on that same band. I also am using a wireless mic here which utilizes the 2.4 gigahertz band, and so far I've had no issues with dropouts at all utilizing just the straight first channel on here. I haven't had to switch between the channels. The final spec that's worth noting is the fact that the U4 is mono. Now at this price point, and in fact well above this price point, that is standard, and if that's concerning you, you really don't need to let it concern you. Most monitoring systems that you would utilize on stage are in mono. Most of the wedges that you would use are in mono. Most people don't use two wedges to make a stereo pair. Most people are perfectly fine with mono. The sound quality is fantastic in mono anyway. And also, in terms of the outputs that you would be utilizing from most live desks, they would also be in mono. The only thing it means from a recording standpoint is that you need to make sure that your output that you're using, let's say it's a headphone output that you're running the transmitter through, is set to mono, or you're only going to get one side of the stereo pair, probably the left side, and that can cause some issues in terms of the mix that you're hearing. For guitar players like myself, most of the signals that we're going to be hearing are running in mono anyway, but of course for the tracks that we want to be playing to, we want to hear those as a mono mix down. And again, that's very easy to set up with most modern interfaces or most mixers. For those of you that can't or don't want to use the XLR output of the U4's transmitter with your audio device, they also include a jack converter on there that enables you to plug this into a headphone output, for example, or any other line level unbalanced output that you would want to. So let's hook this up. I'm going to play some guitar for you, play some tracks for you to let you hear the audio quality that we've got going on here. I've been super impressed by it. Then we'll check out the latency, and I'm going to do this in a moderately scientific way, let you see the latency in my DAW, and I'll explain how I've set that up. So in order to let you hear the sound quality of the U4, what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug my Xfx 3 into my PreSonus Studio 192 audio interface. That's going to be recorded directly. Then I'm going to send via the transmitter out one of the headphone jacks on the same audio interface to this receiver. Then the receiver's output, the headphone output, is going to go back into, in mono of course, back into my Studio 192 interface in another input, and I'm going to record that also in Studio One at the same time. What we're then going to do is we're going to switch between those two sound sources so you can hear a direct comparison between them. So let's check out the latency of the unit. Now, here I've got two audio tracks that I've recorded. The top one is the Xfx 3, as it went straight into my PreSonus Studio 192 interface. And the bottom one here is actually the signal that went out the transmitter via the headphone socket of the PreSonus Studio 192 back into my PreSonus Studio 192 into another input after it had gone through the receiver of the U4 setup. So we're going to look at the latency. Now, the way we can do this, I've marked this peak here, the transient, the peak here of it, and then the same one is marked here with this marker, okay? And it looks like quite a big offset here because of the zoom that we've got going in. But the time values, now I'm going to zoom in here so you can see this because this is really small. This stands for 17 minutes, 47 seconds, and in this case, 697 milliseconds. There's obviously 1,000 milliseconds in a second. Now we can count through these now, and we can see that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a bit until we get to this peak here, and then we've got to knock off a little bit here. So it's about 6.5 milliseconds. Now, that is higher than the 5 milliseconds that Xvive have quoted. However, remember that the signal is being converted twice. So it's coming back into my PreSonus Studio 192 again, after it's gone through the Xvive UA4 and being converted from analog to digital again, which is going to add a little tiny bit of further latency into the process. So if we knock off, let's say, 1.5 milliseconds for that digital, analog to digital conversion to happen, then again, we're around that 5 millisecond value. So pretty close to what Xvive are quoting. Now, anywhere between this sort of 5 and 6 millisecond value, most people are never going to hear or feel that. It's like standing a reasonable distance from a guitar cab on a reasonably sized stage. So we're all used to that kind of millisecond latency. We just deal with it on standard stages. And I have to say, in my personal experience utilizing this unit, I couldn't notice any perceivable latency as I was playing. So there we go. That kind of shows you that latency value on a DAW. So there we go, guys. That is the U4 wireless in-ear monitoring system from Xvive. I've been really impressed with these. I think Xvive have hit a really good sweet spot in terms of price to performance ratio here. And these will certainly represent a good entry point for anybody looking to get into the wireless in-ear monitoring market without having to break the bank, because this is an expensive game to get into if you really want to spend the money. So you've got here a very portable, very well built setup as well. No compromises on the build quality. That can be thrown in a gig bag, use the carry pouch that's included. You've got a good 5 hours of charge on there, exactly the specs that they say on the box as well. Really good sound quality. You've got that 90 feet or 30 meters of range, 5 milliseconds latency, give or take. So, you know, really good latency on there. So a very good product. As usual, guys, you can click the link in the description below to check out more details on the U4 from Xvive. Hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this overview. And yeah, my name's Tom Quayle. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.